And we are live. It is Packer game day. This is Mike Halatek on the Barely Pregame Show with my co-host, Ivan Vargas. Ivan, how are you, man?
I am great. I would be better if the Bears got a victory tonight in a revenge game for Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, I talked about this on Twitter. In 2018, Mitch had his coming out party against the Packers. He roared downfield in Nagy's first game as head coach. They should have won the game if Kyle Fuller doesn't drop a pass that hit him right between the 2 and the 3 at the 2-minute warning, and the Bears would have won that game. They went out in in December and thoroughly defeated Green Bay to clinch the NFC North in December. And, of course, we all know what happened. The Bears won the division. They played well. They lost in the first game of the playoffs. And then the Bears had all of the anticipation. All Bear fans were anticipating a return to glory in 2019. And, of course, they led off against Green Bay to start celebrate the 100th anniversary of the NFL. And they laid an egg, and he never recovered from that. Then they played again in December in Green Bay, and they played poorly. And that was the beginning of the end. And, of course, we saw what we thought was the end of the Trubisky era earlier this year when Foles was traded for. And he came in despite Trubisky playing okay, and he was undefeated as a starter. So get this. Here's a trivia question. There are 2 NFL quarterbacks that are undefeated as starters this year. Do you know who they are?
Ben Roethlisberger and Mitchell Trubisky.
Those are the 2. Hard to believe, but those are the 2. So what I posted in Twitter is tonight the rebirth of Mitchell Trubisky, and we can only hope so.
Yeah, and listening to him, and it really irked me that he wasn't named a starter earlier in the week, knowing gosh darn well that Nick Foles with whatever injury he suffered to that hip was not going to be able to go. He wasn't at any of the practices. He didn't participate in throughout the week, I believe. And you waited till Friday to announce it. Like, this is not a Belichickian move. This isn't chess. The Packers knew who was going to start if healthy on Sunday, and that was going to be Mitch because you have an injury to Nick Foles. I didn't like how it was held till Friday. I didn't like the fact that Mitch was pulled in that game. To be honest with you, Mitch mentioned it in his press conference on Friday. He was blindsided, and you could see the frustration. I wouldn't say frustration. You could see the chip on Mitchell Trubisky's shoulders in that press conference. That was a different press conference that I've seen from Mitchell Trubisky in the past. He was in control and confident when he was answering questions, speaking to these guys. He had it didn't sound like a recording of Matt Nagy.
You're right. It didn't. But we'll get more into this game. But of course, we have to go back a little bit and recap. It's been 2 weeks since the Bears played. But let's keep it real brief because the Bears stunk up the place against Minnesota 2 weeks ago.
No, I mean, and you're absolutely right. It was one of the most embarrassing losses, and the game was within reach. The game was well in hand. You could have one strike could have changed the game for the Bears, but it was embarrassing on the side of the offense that you were in the game in the beginning of the half, and then all of a sudden you turn into just a hapless unit. There was no push, there was no drive. Some of the plays were just they were confusing to even the most novice of football fans. I don't understand why, and I'm going to go back a while. I don't understand why this team didn't put an emphasis on finding offensive linemen, whether in the draft or through free agency. They just never really emphasized that. They thought they were going to get away with signing Massey and signing Charles Leno Jr. to big deals, but I more felt like those were let's see if I'm the smartest guy type of moves. Let's see if we hit big on one of these guys instead of going and really risking maybe some draft, maybe using draft equity to for offensive linemen, or going ahead and risking money in free agency. I just feel like there's just never been a point of emphasis in any of those phases from Ryan Pace to find offensive linemen.
Ryan Pace has done a great job building the defense. No questions asked. But when it comes to building, you have to build the offense. And the first thing you have to start with isn't a quarterback. It's an offensive line. This happened to the Bears in the Angelo era when they traded for Jay Cutler, and their offensive line was average, and he really didn't have much of a receiving core for Jay to excel in. And now it's we've got decent running backs, we've got decent receivers. We've got probably the best group of tight ends I've ever seen on this roster, but we have a terrible offensive line. And we'll get to the offensive line in a little bit, but the Bears ended up losing their fourth straight game against Minnesota to drop to 5-5. And of course, the predictable press conference that Nagy held after the game was, we're going to take the time in the bye week to self-scout. Well, a 10-year-old that follows football can scout this team and tell you what's wrong. And it starts right where you said with the offensive line. So, we've only got 20 minutes left in the show already, so we're not going to dwell on Minnesota. Earlier this week, Detroit lost again back on Thanksgiving, which seems like it was 2 weeks ago already. But they lost 41-25. And on Saturday, both the head coach, Matt Patricia, and the GM, Bob Quinn, were fired. So the Bears play Detroit at home next Sunday. So there will be facing an interim head coach. So this kind of sets up the rest of the season. Earlier today, Minnesota got an absolute gift from Carolina and ended up winning 28-27. So to say that tonight is a must win, we said it the last 2 weeks that this is a must win. This is a must win. Well, if by definition must win for a couple of reasons. If they win, they're only a half a game out of first place. If they lose, they're tied with Minnesota and actually fall into third place in the division. So it is a huge must win for the Bears. And if they do win, they sneak into the last wild card spot, assuming we're still going to only have 7 wild card teams. Because Arizona got surprisingly beat earlier today. So there's a lot to play for today. And a couple of things that just came down the pipeline while we were getting ready to go live on our show here. And guys, if you're following us, please make sure you send us some comments on whether you're watching on Facebook or if you're watching on YouTube. But Akeem Hicks is not going to play today, which is a big blow. But if they can still win without him, and he's healthy going into the last 5 games, I'm all for it. But Nick Foles is inactive. Gibson on the defensive line is inactive. McManus is inactive. Latavius Simmons has been inactive all year long. And Javon Wims, who somehow is still on this roster, but still in the doghouse, is the last inactive. Eric Lambert, our friend from Sports Mockery, just posted right before we went online that the offensive line to start the game is probably going to be Leno at left tackle, Whitehair at left guard, Mustafa at center, Bars at right guard, and Ifedi at right tackle. So they have definitely shaken up the offensive line, and let's hope that this is something that works.
Yeah, and it's weird because I thought I saw Leno might have been out with a toe this week, a couple days ago that I had shared with everybody. But if he's able to go, I guess that's fine. As long as there was a shakeup, and I like this shakeup. Whitehair at guard, Mustipher. As soon as Mustipher came in replace of Whitehair, I was a big proponent of having him stay there and doing just that, moving Cody Whitehair over to left guard to replace a James Daniels that is being sorely missed, and then going ahead and shaking up things on that right side, and to put Alex Bars over next to Mustipher, a guy that they play together. They're both from Notre Dame. They're familiar with each other. They've both been coached by Harry Hiestand, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But with the team, he's with us here in spirit, but he's no longer with the team. And, I would give credit to Juan Castillo and Bill Lazor for, I guess, having the balls to go ahead and switch things up, because this was offensive line that was pretty much the same. They stood the same. They never made an adjustment. This is the first major adjustment I've seen this team make all season long, maybe in 2 seasons.
You're absolutely right. Hey, for our viewers, just wanted to go. There are 2 games left that are currently being played on this week's schedule before the Bears game. The San Francisco 49ers just kicked a field goal to tie the Rams at 20. There's only 18 seconds left to play. They did get the ball back from the Rams, and they are marching, and they are in field goal range to perhaps win the game, which would be a huge benefit for the Bears. And the other game is the Mahomes versus Tom Brady. This game should have been put away early by Kansas City. They could have easily scored 35 points in the first half. Patrick Mahomes threw for over 350 yards in the first half alone, but they're only ahead right now, 27-17, with just over 4 minutes to play. But Tampa does have the ball, and they're inside Kansas City territory, and they just reached the end zone. We're going to take a quick break to hear from Tick Splits, and then we're going to get to our keys to the game, our history corner, and the pick is in right after this message from TickSplits.com.
I just heard my favorite band is in town. I'd love to get good seats, but everywhere I've looked, the ticket sites have crazy service fees.
Haven't you heard of Tick Splits?
Who?
Tick Splits. They don't gouge you with crazy fees. The price they advertise is the price you pay, plus a small delivery fee.
Never pay service fees again. Go to TIXBLITZ.com today. TickSplits.com. Guaranteed seats, low prices. That's TickSplits.com. Every ticket, every venue, everywhere.
And you can now use promo code SportsZone, all one word, and save 5% off every dollar of your purchase at TickSplits.com, the official ticket provider of SportsZone Chicago and the Barely Pregame Show. Ivan, like I said, this is the game that the Bears really have to put something together offensively. Believe it or not, Aaron Rodgers hasn't had the best of games over the last couple of years. The last 3 times, let me see if I can find this, but the last 3 times that the Aaron Rodgers has played against the Bears, he's only thrown for 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. He had 1 interception, which was the December of 18 game, where the Bears clinched the division. He hasn't had a QB rating over 95. In fact, he had 2 sub-80 QB rating games in that span. So the Bears defense has played them tough. But let's get to the keys to the game tonight. The Bears have to come out right away and punch Green Bay in the mouth. If you go back and look at their last 2 losses, they've been run on. In fact, all 3 games that Green Bay has lost, the opposing team has run rampant right through the Green Bay Packers defensive line.
Yeah, that's right. And like I've been talking about it basically all season. I talked about with my buddy Luke on the Basement Monsters Game Day podcast, is that The Packers are susceptible to that run. I understand they have good edge rushers. I understand that their secondary is tops in the league. Not tops in the league, but they're one of the best in the league, and they're young and they're getting better. But if you could go ahead and run down those edges, you could get this defense worn out early. And I mean, you have to make it a conscious effort, not just, all right, we're going to run the ball a little bit here, and if we get stuff, we're going to just abandon it completely and try to go over the top. You have to stick with the run by all costs. The offense, by all means, needs to stay out on the football field as long as they possibly can in order to control clock, keep Aaron off the field, because that's how. I mean, I was talking about the Bucs game earlier, and you have to control it. You have to keep superstar players off the football field, and that starts by controlling the clock on offense, having long drug-out drives, and scoring points at the end of drives. You cannot come up empty today against Green Bay, or they're going to come back down the field and they're going to put up touchdowns and not field goals against you.
Absolutely. The second key to the game is the O-line and their physical play, like we just talked about, punching them in the mouth. And the game plan, they have to game plan to what Mitch does well.
Yes.
Not just game plan and try to fit square pegs into round holes, which is what Nagy has done repeatedly over the last few years. So they definitely have to game plan to Mitch's strengths and get him going, get him maybe some short passes, not bubble screen passes, but short passes to get Trubisky into the rhythm. Use the middle of the field with your tight ends and let that open up the running game. And then the third key to the victory tonight is to pressure Rodgers. You can't let him sit in the pocket and pick you apart. If you sit back in a soft zone against Rodgers, he's going to just pick you to death. If you can do man-to-man but keep a spy in the middle of the field, like Trevathan or like Roquan, so he can't escape and run for 10, 15, 20 yards like he will do against man-to-man coverage. That's the key. You've got to pressure him. You have to pressure him from the middle of the line, and your defensive ends, your edge runners, can't overshoot Rodgers. You either contain him or you sack him.
Right, and it's incredibly important that you just don't let him beat you with his smarts. You cannot make a mistake. Aaron Rodgers is the best at capitalizing on your mistakes, especially, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be, it could be a offsides penalty that he turns into a touchdown because he has a free play. It can be, you're rushing subs on and off the field, and he's rushing to the line trying to get you in a bad position in order to get a penalty. The guy's QB smarts are, they're just off the charts. You know who he is. You've played him time and time again. This has been what has kept you from where you want to be as a football team. The lack of beating Aaron Rodgers. You have to come out tonight with a mentality that, hey, our offense might be dumbed down or simplified, but our defense needs to step up, and the rest of the guys on special teams need to step up and have a big game, because it takes the entire team. If you have one phase of the game that's bad, you need everybody to work together. You cannot make mistakes on either side of the ball tonight.
You're absolutely right. Do you have anything to add to those keys tonight?
Yeah, I got my keys to the game. Mine is run for your football lives. You got your guy in David Montgomery back off a concussion protocol. You changed up your offensive line for what? Because you're looking for the best possible push to go into this stretch run. You have to see what they have. Let's see if they have some nasty. Run the ball. Because, like you said, we've seen it when you get running downhill against Green Bay, they get on their heels, they get worn out, and you're able to break it wide open late in the games. Also, for Mitch, keep that chip on your shoulder, Mitch. Keep that chip on your shoulder, Mitch. Come out there. Look, I don't want to say the cliche that Matt Nagy loves to say in his mantra, the BU. But Mitch, play your game. I want to say, play your game, Mitch. Don't worry about them. So, like, they've already banished you. They've already ruled you out. Play your game, Mitch. Show me the chip. Show me that you want something. Show me that you want to make this a redemption run instead of an interview for another team. And honestly, you got to hit both of the errands. You have to hit both of them, Jones and Rodgers, and that goes into your last point, Mike. You have to put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and you have to make sure you wrap up Aaron Jones. You cannot give these guys extra yardage, free plays, anything tonight. And I know it's asking for much. I wouldn't say it has to be a perfect game, but it has to be a motivated game. You have to have purpose out there tonight. And the purpose is not allowing this team to run over you again. That we've seen for the past, decade? I don't like seeing Green Bay winning football games against the Bears. And, it was better in the earlier 2000s where it was kind of back and forth even. It has been one-sided way too often as of late, and I need that to change tonight.
Yeah, speaking of how lopsided it has been, this is, everybody knows, is the oldest rivalry in the NFL. It's the 199th meeting in this rivalry, dating, of course, all the way back to 1921, which was the Packers' first year in the league, as they came into the league in year 2. How bad has it been? Well, right now the Packers lead the series 99-95. There's been 6 ties. But prior to the 1992 season, the Bears owned this series. They were ahead in this series, 80 wins to 57 wins for Green Bay with those same 6 ties. That's how lopsided it has been. They have rolled off 42 wins to the Bears 15. That's how lopsided this series has been. So that kind of begins our history corner. Ivan, what's your favorite game or two in this series?
Well, and we talked about it. It's funny and I like that we were talking about this one Wednesday on How Tech Hall with Eric Lambert. And I'd mentioned my number one game, and it's the first. That was pretty much what started me on the path of being a Bears fan. It was the game against Green Bay right after Walter Payton's passing. Brian Robinson gets up. I don't know how he got himself high enough to block that field goal, but he was able to block that field goal. And after the game, he had mentioned to the press that Walter Payton helped him block that field goal. They lifted him up to help block that field goal, and that was pretty much my most. That's the earliest memory, and that's one of my fondest memories of Green Bay, Chicago.
Because it was November of 1999 for our viewers. By the way, I wanted to reach out and say hello to Armando. Armando says we got to call a lot of rollouts.
That's right.
For Mitch.
Yeah, and the next one was that 2000 the opener for 2006 when they shut out Brett Favre. Devin Hester gets his first kick return, I believe, of his career. That started that, and that started that Super Bowl run that year. And that was, although it ended in heartbreak, it started with so much promise. I believe I was a senior in high school. That was one of the best football years I could remember. And even all the way up to the loss in the Super Bowl, I'll never forget that run, and I'll never forget that opening day game against Green Bay.
That was I was actually at that game in Green Bay. It was opening day of the 2006 season. Bernard Berrien caught a 40-some-odd yard touchdown pass from Rex Grossman to start the scoring, and Devin Hester's first punt return. That was Devin Hester's rookie year, for those of you that don't know. But that was his first game as a Bear, and he ended the scoring with, I think it was an 86-yard punt return for a touchdown. So Bears at Packers 1985 was my favorite game. Again, I guess it was the Bears at Green Bay from Armando. And my favorite game is, and we talked about this on the Halitech Hall show on Wednesday with Eric again, is the 1980 rematch on December 7th of 1980, where the Bears destroyed Green Bay 61-7. They scored 8 touchdowns on offense and had a pick 6 in that game.
Oh man, every time I hear about that game, I just wish I was there. I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't present here on Earth at that time. 9 years later. 9 years, yeah. Mike, you're at every game. Every game in Bears history, I could count on Mike.
I've been in a lot, but I haven't been in a lot lately. But yeah, I was at that. I was a season ticket holder back then, and of course that was the old Soldier Field, and it was a lot of fun to be at. It was actually scoreless at the end of the first quarter, but they changed that real quick to lead off. Walter Payton ran for over 130 yards, had 3 touchdowns. Vince Evans threw for over 300 yards and only 22 attempts with 3 touchdowns. Lenny Walterscheid had a pick 6 in the fourth quarter. They missed 2 extra points is the only bad part about the entire game. So it was a lot of fun to be at. I guess that gets us time for our picks for the evening, because we only have about 3 minutes left to go in the pregame show. So I hate to say this to everybody, but my partner doesn't have good news for us.
No, I don't, because I'm as much faith as I have in this defense, and you know, hopefully I'll have faith, more faith later on in the season if they show me something here tonight. I just don't think that this is going to be the game for them. I think, you know, mixing up the line is great. I think it's going to vastly improve them. It's going to give them better protection, but I still think that there's just going to be too many mistakes, too many missed opportunities by this offense that is just, you know, I guess, you know, just trying to switch things up and see what works. I think that they're going to give up a couple of bad interceptions or fumbles, just turnovers in general, and I think that the Green Bay Packers are going to win this 30-21.
I'm going to disagree with you. The ever eternal optimist that Mr. Mike is thinks that, you know, the defense is what the defense is. They have always played Aaron, even back to with the exception of a few games. They've always played Rodgers tough. You know, they've had a couple of key interceptions. They've knocked him out of games. And I think that tonight, if they can do exactly what we talked about, keep Aaron Rodgers off the field with an effective ground game, and you know, as Hank Stram once said, matriculate the ball down the field, take their time, score. Okay, they still they're going to miss a couple of opportunities and turn touchdowns into field goals, but I think we're in for a big upset tonight, and the Bears are going to pull this one off. And my score for tonight's game is 27-24 Chicago.
I hope you're right, Mike. I'm not saying I hope I'm right. I hope I'm wrong tonight, but I mean, I just as much as I want to hope and wish, I don't think that I want to put my faith in a pipe dream.
Well, I do not have a bet on tonight's game, so I did not put my money where my mouth is, but I am putting my heart on my sleeve, saying that I think the Bears can pull this one off. When the Bears can beat Green Bay when you least expect it. So let's just hope that's a fact. The 2 late games are over. Tampa scored late, but they ended up losing to Kansas City by 3 points. It's apparently the first time in Tom Brady's career where he's lost 3 straight games. And our old friend Robbie Gould kicked a field goal as time expired to give San Francisco a win, a much-needed win for the Bears' playoff hopes by beating the Rams by 3. So Armando thinks that the Bears are going to get the win, just like I do. So let's hope. Hey, join Ivan and me Wednesday for the Hal Attack Hall show. We have 2 guests coming on to show the first part of the evening. the nephew of the great Doug Buffone, John Buffone, is going to join us from 6:30 to 7. And then the last half or 2/3 of the show from sportsmockery.com, Drew Cole will be joining us to talk Bears, hopefully a Bears victory tonight and what we can expect next week against Detroit. So for my partner and co-host and producer, Ivan Vargas, this is Mike Halatek saying, Bear down, go Bears.
Bear down, guys.
I just heard my favorite band is in town. I'd love to get good seats, but everywhere I've looked, the ticket sites have crazy service fees.
Haven't you heard of TixBlitz?
Who?
TixBlitz. They don't gouge you with crazy fees. The price they advertise is the price you pay, plus a small delivery fee.
Never pay service fees again. Go to TIXBLITZ.com today. TixBlitz.com. Guaranteed seats, low prices. That's TixBlitz.com. Every ticket, every venue, everywhere.